What if a song written in 10 minutes, recorded with a car engine in place of a motorcycle, sold 30 million copies and topped charts in 26 countries? Then his own bandmates tried to fire him from the band he created. The hit that made him famous became the ceiling he could never break through, and a government used it to soundtrack a fatal car crash. This is the rise and fall of Ray Dorset and Mungo Jerry. To understand what Mungo Jerry was, you first had to understand what they refused to be. By the late 1960s, rock music had grown serious, heavy, and complex. Progressive rock bands filled 20-minute suites with orchestral passages. The underground scene prided itself on intellectual gravity. Ray Dorset wanted nothing to do with any of it. Dorset was born in 1946 and raised on Skiffle, a raw, homespun British offshoot of American blues and folk that exploded in the 1950s. His musical North Star was Lonnie Donegan, the man they called the King of Skiffle, who had proved that music required nothing more than a washboard, a tea-chest bass, and an infectious groove. As a teenager, Dorset had haunted the Two Eyes coffee bar in London, the equivalent of Liverpool's Cavern Club, where he watched skiffle morph into early rock and roll and absorbed every lesson that rough communal music had to offer. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. While the rock world chased sophistication, Dorset was working a day job in a laboratory for Timex and playing in small bands on the side. Groups like the Concords, White Lightning, and eventually an outfit called The Good Earth. The Good Earth was a drummerless ensemble that leaned hard into jug band blues and country. They stomped on wood instead of playing drums, blew into glass bottles for melody, and played upright string bass where other bands played electric. They sounded like they had been conjured from a 1920s front porch, and in the landscape of 1969 that made them completely invisible. But Dorset believed in it. He believed that the groove mattered more than the gear, that feel mattered more than flash. When the Good Earth gradually evolved into Mungo Jerry, a name lifted from T.S. Eliot's whimsical collection of cat poems, the lineup crystallized around that same philosophy. Ray Dorset on guitar and vocals, Paul King on banjo, jug, and kazoo, Colin Earle on piano, Mike Cole on upright string bass, and on occasion, Joe Rush on washboard. No drummer, no synthesizers, no pretension. They were everything the rock establishment was not. No drum kit, no distortion pedals, no pretense of sophistication. Just rhythm, feel, and an almost stubborn refusal to take themselves too seriously. And for one extraordinary summer, that made all the difference in the world. The moment that changed everything came on a warm Saturday evening in May 1970 at the Hollywood Music Festival. Not Hollywood, California, but a festival held in Newcastle-under-Lyme, England. The bill was stacked with heavyweights: the Grateful Dead, Black Sabbath, Free. Mungo Jerry was listed somewhere in the margins, an unknown act nobody had come specifically to see. They took the stage at dusk on May 23rd. The crowd had been sitting in the rain for hours, enduring long, lethargic sets. And then Ray Dorset stomped his boot on that piece of wood. Paul King let out his signature hoot into a glass bottle, and 40,000 people stood up. The energy was instantaneous and almost supernatural. The crowd started banging Coke tins together in rhythm with the band, creating a sound that one witness described as a groovy scrapyard working overtime. The organizers were so stunned by the response that they booked Mungo Jerry for a second set the following day, an almost unheard of honor at a festival of that scale. A stranger walked up to Dorset afterward and said simply, "No BS." Dorset later recalled that those two words captured everything he had been trying to do.
In the summertime, when the weather is high, you can stretch right.
The song that had ignited the crowd was In the Summertime. Dorset had written it in roughly 10 minutes on a second-hand Fender Stratocaster, a melody that felt less composed than discovered, as if it had always existed somewhere in the warm air of a summer afternoon. And Dorset had simply been the one to pull it out. The recording process was equally informal. Producer Barry Murray recognized that the song's simplicity was its superpower and refused to overload it. The percussion was Ray stomping his foot on a piece of wood. The bass was an upright string bass. The famous hoot sound was Paul King blowing into a glass bottle. The song was only about 2 minutes long in its original form, so Murray edited the tape to repeat the track. To bridge the loop, he needed the sound of a car engine. When no motorcycle recording could be found, engineer Howard Barrow simply drove his Triumph sports car past the studio window, while a microphone dangled outside the door, capturing the stereo sweep of the engine as it passed. Released on May 22, 1970, just one day before the Hollywood Festival. In the summertime, reached #1 on the UK charts within 2 weeks and stayed there for 7 consecutive weeks. It topped charts in 26 countries, became one of the fastest-selling singles in French history, and eventually sold over 30 million copies worldwide. Dorset, who had been working in a Timex laboratory just months earlier, had to ask his boss for the afternoon off to perform on Top of the Pops. One song, 10 Minutes to Write. A car engine outside a studio window as its most sophisticated production trick, and it rewrote his entire life. The summer of 1970 belonged to Mungo Jerry. Ray Dorset's massive sideburns became as iconic as the song itself. The band's warm, ramshackle energy, their furry boots and broad grins, their jug band joy, felt like an antidote to an increasingly complicated world. The press coined a term for it, Mungomania. Their debut had been released as an early maxi single, playing at 33 1/3 RPM rather than the standard 45. The record featured 3 tracks and was sold in a picture sleeve for only a few pence more than a standard single. It was incredible value, and that accessibility contributed enormously to the sheer scale of the sales. The follow-up singles demonstrated that the band had more than one trick. Baby Jump, released in March 1971, went to #1 in the UK, heavier, more stomping than the debut, with a harder drive that showed Dorset was capable of range. Lady Rose reached #5 that June, a more melodic turn that proved they could write in different directions. But the music industry and the public had already filed Mungo Jerry under one specific mood, one specific sound, one specific summer, and every departure from that template was met with diminishing enthusiasm.
Baby, what you doing to me?
The United States presented a particular frustration. In the summertime, had reached #3 on the Billboard Hot 100, a remarkable achievement, but subsequent releases failed to crack the American top tier. Dorset later argued that US label strategy hurt the band's momentum, with the wrong songs sometimes being pushed as singles. The result was that in the country with the biggest music market on earth, Mungo Jerry was perceived as a one-hit wonder, while they continued to chart regularly throughout Europe and the UK. And behind the scenes, the pressures were mounting. Dorset was on an airplane every few days, bouncing from country to country, never staying anywhere long enough to see beyond the hotel lobby and the stage. The Good Time brand had become a machine, and the machine demanded constant feeding. Other band members began to feel the imbalance. Dorset was the songwriter, the lead singer, and increasingly the only face the public associated with the name. For Paul King, Colin Earl, and the others, the question quietly became, were they a band, or were they backing musicians for Ray Dorset's ongoing summer? That question would soon explode into an answer nobody wanted, and it would take the entire band down with it. The year 1972 brought the crisis that had been building since the first wave of Mungomania crested. The internal fractures, the shifting musical landscape, and the weight of one defining song all converged at once, and the result was a collapse that reshaped everything. In January 1972, following a grinding tour of Australia and the Far East, band members Colin Earl and Paul King made a desperate and ultimately ill-fated move. They called a meeting at the Red Bus offices in London and announced to Ray Dorset that he was fired. Their plan was to continue without him, but that idea collapsed almost immediately. Management and label executives immediately grasped the absurdity of the situation. Dorset was the lead singer. Dorset was the primary songwriter. Dorset was the only person the public associated with the name. Within days, the decision was reversed. King and Earl were out. Dorset was officially sanctioned as the sole keeper of the Mungo Jerry identity. But winning that battle did nothing to solve the larger war. The music world of 1972 was a fundamentally different place than it had been in 1970. The jug band warmth that had felt refreshing against the backdrop of progressive rock now felt old-fashioned against the glitter and electricity of glam rock. T-Rex and Slade had taken that same good time energy and electrified it, dressed it up, made it theatrical and dangerous. The record-buying public that had fallen in love with Dorset's stomp box and glass bottle hoot had largely moved on to something shinier. Dorset tried to adapt. The 1972 album Boot Power introduced a traditional drummer and pushed toward a harder rocking sound, even dressing the cover in imagery inspired by the era's bootboy subculture. Critics were not kind. The album showed that Dorset could adjust the machinery, but it also revealed how much of Mungo Jerry's identity had depended on the original stripped-down formula. The BBC added another layer of difficulty. Have a Whiff on Me, included on the Lady Rose single, was banned for allegedly advocating cocaine use. The result was a wave of controversy that made the band look more provocative than playful, further eroding their commercial standing, with radio programmers and record buyers who had loved them for their uncomplicated joy.
Oh, lady, my rose, my lady rose.
What the public did not realize at the time was that In the Summertime had never been a starting point. It had been a ceiling. The very perfection of that single, its effortless global resonance, its baked-in summery happiness, made everything that followed feel like a lesser version of the same thing. The song was still playing on radios across the world, in shops, in cars, at seaside resorts, at outdoor festivals where the sun still shone the same way it had in 1970. But Mungo Jerry, as a living, evolving musical force, had effectively stopped. From 1972 onward, Mungo Jerry became, in practical terms, Ray Dorset operating under a brand name. There was no dramatic final concert, no press conference announcing a breakup, no tabloid scandal to mark the ending. The classic lineup simply dissolved, and Dorset kept walking forward under the same flag. The departed members formed the King Earl Boogie Band. Their debut album, Trouble at Mill, earned genuine critical respect for its exploration of folk, blues, and country. A reminder that the musicians Dorset had worked with were genuinely talented artists in their own right. But the group's stability was undermined almost immediately when their lead singer, Dave Lambert, left to join the Strawbs. The King Earl Boogie Band never achieved the traction they deserved and quietly faded on their own terms. Dorset, meanwhile, continued to find unexpected pockets of success around the world. He became a pioneer in performing behind the Iron Curtain, building a devoted following in Eastern Bloc countries where Western rock music was a rare and precious commodity. And in South Africa, Mungo Jerry experienced something close to a genuine second act, scoring a #1 hit with a cover of Knockin' on Heaven's Door, and maintaining a significant commercial presence long after the UK music press had declared them irrelevant. There was also the remarkable story of Feels Like I'm in Love. Dorset wrote the song in 1977, intending it for Elvis Presley. He even recorded a demo in which he mimicked Presley's vocal phrasing, hoping to pitch it to the King directly. Presley died that same year before the song could reach him. The track eventually found its way to Scottish disco singer Kelly Marie, whose 1980 recording became a #1 hit in the United Kingdom. Dorset had now topped the UK charts as a performer and as a songwriter for a different artist, a distinction very few people in music history can claim. But the irony was not lost on him. His greatest strength, the ability to write a simple, unforgettably catchy song, was the same quality that critics had spent years trying to convince him to abandon. Through the 1980s and beyond, Dorset continued to tour under the Mungo Jerry name in smaller venues, at nostalgia festivals, and at events across Europe where the audience still arrived hoping to feel something they had first felt in 1970. He obliged them every single time. He never pretended the golden era had never happened, and he never stopped being grateful that it had. But the arenas were gone. The maxi singles were gone. The band as a creative engine had been gone for years. What remained was one man and one extraordinary song. Decades passed, and something unexpected happened. The world did not forget In the Summertime, while rock critics moved on to punk, new wave, and arena spectacle. While the music press wrote Mungo Jerry out of the story almost entirely, the song kept appearing. Filmmakers discovered it as a needle drop that could conjure a specific emotional state with almost surgical precision, carefree, sun-soaked, innocent, and just slightly reckless. It appeared in Wedding Crashers, in Despicable Me 2, in the 2022 slasher film X, where it played against the action with chilling irony. In the United Kingdom, it became the unlikely soundtrack to a drink-driving public information campaign in the early 1990s. A campaign that began with a familiar, joyful riff as a group of friends drank at a country pub, then ended with a fatal car crash as the words, "Have a drink, have a drive," hung in the air. For an entire generation of British viewers, that advertisement permanently altered the emotional color of the song, turning what had been pure sunshine into something more complicated and haunting. Ray Dorset spent years explaining that, in 1970, those lyrics had simply meant going for a leisurely cruise. But cultural context had moved on, and the song had been pulled along with it. Then, in 1995, came the moment that brought In the Summertime to a generation that had not been alive in 1970. Jamaican-American artist Shaggy released a reggae-inflected cover that sampled Dorset's original vocal and mouth percussion, and it became a major international hit. Shaggy altered the lyric, "Have a drink, have a drive," to something less controversial, a quiet acknowledgement that the world had changed even if the melody had not. The song that Ray Dorset wrote in 10 minutes on a second-hand guitar that was lengthened with a looped tape and the sound of a car engine outside a studio window, that a jug band nobody had heard of performed at a rain-soaked festival in the English Midlands. That song had outlasted everything. It outlasted the band's classic lineup. It outlasted the lineup that tried to replace him. It outlasted the music industry that had tried to replicate it. It outlasted the cultural moment that had first embraced it. It had become, in the truest sense, immortal. Mungo Jerry's story is not a story of scandal or collapse. It is something quieter and more universal. The story of a perfect moment that could not be followed, and a song so complete in itself that it needed no sequel. Ray Dorset gave the world one of the greatest summers it ever had. He did it in 10 minutes with a second-hand guitar and a boot stomping on a rough piece of wood. The band faded, the name faded, but if you close your eyes right now, you can still hear that stomp, that hoot, that riff. Some songs simply never leave. What's your memory of that summer? Drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from rock's greatest era.